We will look at this very seriously.
So will he or won't he? Confusion over whether former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich will make a run for the White House in 2012. Tonight, he's here to set the record straight. Hannity starts right here, right now.
And tonight, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich was the talk of the political world this week as rumors swirled that a major announcement was imminent. And on Thursday in Atlanta, Georgia, Speaker Gingrich revealed that he is one step closer to challenging the anointed one in the year 2012 and that he's forming a presidential exploratory website. Let's take a look.
We will look at this very seriously, and we will very methodically lay out the framework of what we'll do next. And we think that the key is to have citizens who understand this is going to take a lot of us for a long time working together. There'll be many more chances to have conversations. I simply want to give you that, and I think you will have more than enough to write about in the near future.
Now, the former speaker was a bit cryptic about his future in politics yesterday, but tonight we've got the man himself right here in our studio to help set the record straight. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker.
Good to be here.
Mr. President.
Well, that's up to God and the American people. But Cliff and I were grateful yesterday because we had Governor Deal and we had the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House, all three with us, and all three supportive of what we're doing. And I think at this point we have an exploratory website, newtexplore2012.com, and we're getting a lot of responses on it. And my expectation is that by the end of this exploratory process that we'll have an announcement and we'll be in the race. And I think it's very daunting, but it's also very exciting.
All right. So there are reasons why you took this step rather than an exploratory committee. Can you talk a little bit about that? Well,
first of all, technically under the Federal Election Commission, it doesn't matter. It's an exploratory process whether you have a committee or not. We are still in the process of wrapping up several things in our businesses. And, for example, this is the first time in, I think, 10 years I've been here as a guest and not as an analyst.
I think that's true.
Because Fox News said, got it, you're not here anymore.
Right.
The American Enterprise Institute, very similarly, I've been a senior scholar there. And as of yesterday, I'm not a senior scholar there. So there are things like that we're working through. We also wanted to have an ability to listen to the whole country, and that's why we're using a website approach, because we want people anywhere who want to be part of this to let us know and to be engaged with it. And I think that there's a real hunger for an articulate expression of American exceptionalism, of how free enterprise creates jobs, of what we need to do to balance the budget once again, as we did when I was Speaker, to get power out of Washington back home to the states and the people thereof, to implement the 10th Amendment, and so and frankly to protect us in foreign policy and in national security. So I think that the potential for a positive, solutions-oriented alternative to Obama is very, very real, and that's what we're going to start outlining on Monday when I'm in Iowa.
Right, in Iowa, and then New Hampshire and South Carolina.
Absolutely.
All right, but these are important questions. You started your political career back in 1958. That's when you began. Okay. You work your way all the way up to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And as I was reading the articles, as the news was coming out this week, you know, you've been out of power in Washington, what, 17 years now?
Well, 12 years since I left the speakership.
But it was 17 years when you became Speaker. There's my math.
That's right.
What's the difference? Because a lot of people saying, all right, well, does Newt still bring some, you know, if we're going to go back 12, 14, 15, 16 years, and every article raises, well, could Newt overcome the past in terms of the fact that you were, quote, deemed by the media a controversial speaker? What do you...
Well, I think, first of all, if you think it's controversial to balance the federal budget for 4 straight years and pay off $400 billion, to have the first tax cut in 16 years and what Art Laffer called the largest capital gains tax cut in American history, to see unemployment go down from 5.4% to 4% while I was Speaker, to strengthen defense, to have the largest entitlement reform in history, welfare reform, 2 out of 3 people went to work or went to school. If those things are controversial, then it was controversial. But I think the biggest advantage of the 12 years I had at the American Enterprise Institute, at the Center for Health Transformation, developing ideas, making movies with Callista, writing books, I had time to think about, and frankly, thanks to the Bush administration allowing me to be a volunteer advisor in defense, in intelligence, that's the State Department, in healthcare, I've had a chance to see the executive branch from the inside. And I think I have a much deeper and more fundamental understanding today of the changes we need to be successful. You know, I'm in the Reagan tradition. I think our best years are ahead of us, not behind us. I think we have a chance to break out and have an extraordinary 20 or 30-year run, leave China and the others way behind, and be the most dynamic, most prosperous and safest country in the world. That requires the kind of changes, I don't know, coming out of the speakership, that I would have had anything like the depth of understanding I have now about how big the changes have to be and how you could actually get it done.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is if you win the primary, what you're setting up is a really compare and contrast two very distinct, different visions. Barack Obama wants to transform America, and you're in many ways saying you want to transform America.
Well, I think President Obama wants to change America into a different country. I want to renew the American dream that all of us are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that we have the right to pursue happiness. He wants to redistribute wealth. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to create wealth. You know, if somebody doesn't create it, you can't redistribute it. I saw him today talking about how no school is going to fail, but the sad fact is his administration backs things like the New York City Union, which wants to fire the 5,000 newest, most aggressive, most energetic, most dedicated teachers in behalf of mediocrity. And I think that we ought to be clear about this. If you want people not to fail, then you better have a standard of measuring success. Mm-hmm. You better have a standard of encouraging people to do their best. And the president, unfortunately, actually backs bureaucracies that guarantee we're not going to succeed.
What do you think, for example, when you have a $14 trillion debt, by the time the next president gets into office, it'll probably be somewhere around $18 trillion. How do you, that number is so big and so massive. How do you get to a balanced budget and then start paying down that debt?
Well, first of all, when I became Speaker, people thought you couldn't balance the budget at all. There was common wisdom among all of our elites.
What was the deficit then? What was the debt then?
A couple $100 billion. The deficit was probably a third of what it is now. But here's my point. It's just a question of scale. We actually got to a balanced budget in 3 years. Now, there are a couple things you would do immediately. The first is you'd pass very dramatic tax cuts to create economic growth, because if you go from 9% unemployment down to 4%, and 5% of the American people go back to work, they come off Medicaid, they come off food stamps, they come off unemployment, they start paying taxes because they have a job. That's step number one to a balanced budget. Second, quit spending. I mean, this new budget the president sent in is a joke. He ought to call Governor Cuomo and Governor Brown, who are Democrats, and ask their advice, because both of them are trying to get to a balanced budget because they have to, and his budget's a disaster. So you just stop spending. Senator Manchin, who is the Democratic conservative governor of West Virginia, with a $4 billion state budget, had a $1 billion rainy day fund. And he said the first thing he did when he became governor is he stopped hiring. He said there's about a 10% turnover in a year, and if you just stop hiring, within 2 years, you have a dramatically smaller government. So my message is simple. I have done it with the help of a lot of people, John Kasich among others. We can do it again. A balanced budget is possible, and that should be one of our goals.
All right, we're going to take a break. More with the former Speaker of the House coming up right after the break.